Hello friends, welcome to my channel Computer Engineering Concepts. In today's session, we are going to see one interesting concept in the distributed system known as recovery in distributed database. We know that distributed system contains n number of processes getting executed at different nodes which are geographically separated. Now, in this distributed environment, failures can take place due to various reasons. The first reason can be message loss. Second reason can be failure of sites. Third reason can be communication link failure. So this type of failure may create troubles in case of distributed database. Recovery must ensure the atomicity. Here atomicity suggests that the transaction should be either completed or it should be aborted. Now we are going to see two protocols that will give us the guarantee of atomicity. The first one is going to be two-phase commit protocol and the second is going to be three-phase commit protocol. So let's see two-phase commit protocol first. Before going into the details of two-phase commit protocol, we need to understand few key terms. The first one is going to be the coordinator site. Second is going to be participating site. And third is going to be log files. So during the transaction, the coordinator is the entity that is going to decide whether it need to commit the transaction or not, depending on the responses that has been received from the participating sites. So in this case, we have shown one coordinator and three participating sites. Every participating site will maintain a log file on it for keeping the track of the transaction. So by considering these three things, we need to proceed further. So now let's go into the details of two-phase commit protocol. This protocol contains two phases, so that's why the name is two-phase commit protocol. The first phase is called as voting phase. This phase is normally utilized by the participating sites. And the second phase is called as the decision phase. This phase is normally executed at the coordinator site. Here one important point to note is that all the activities that happens during the transaction are kept or maintained in the log file. In voting phase, participating site vote for either committing the transaction or to abort the transaction. Now consider that there is a transaction which has been initiated by the coordinator. This transaction's smaller parts are divided to the participating sites. Now participating sites are working on these smaller parts of transaction. After some time, coordinator may ask the participating site, are you ready to commit the transaction? For that, coordinator is going to send one message known as T prepare to every participating site, where T is the name of the transaction and prepare will be the name of the message. So this message will be sent by the coordinator site to all the participating site. With the help of this T prepare message, coordinator site will try to check whether participating sites are ready to commit the transaction. If P1, P2, P3 sites are ready for committing the transaction, then they will send the message T ready to the coordinator site. But there are chances that sometimes there might be a participating site which might not be ready for committing the transaction. So that time, instead of sending T ready message to the coordinator site, that participating site may send T not ready message. T not ready message to the coordinator site. Now, based on the responses received from the participating site, coordinator site has to take the decision whether it has to commit the transaction or it has to abort the transaction. Now with this, the algorithm enters into the second phase, which is called as decision phase. In decision phase, superficially, we can see two cases. In first case, all the participating sites, that is P1, P2 and P3, will send T-ready message to the coordinator site once it receives T-prepare message from the coordinator site. It means that all participating sides are ready for committing the transaction. So with the help of the responses that has been received from the participating side, coordinator has to decide whether it has to commit the transaction or abort the transaction. As all the three responses that has been received from the participating side states that all participating sides are ready to commit the transaction, so coordinator side will take the decision to commit the transaction and it will send T commit message to all the participating side. When the participating sides receive that T commit message, they will commit the transactions at their end. In second scenario, the coordinator site is there. That coordinator site has earlier sent T prepare message to the participating site. Now participating sites has to decide whether they are ready to commit the transaction or they are not ready to commit the transaction. So in this case, P1 is ready for committing the transaction, P2 is not ready for committing the transaction, and P3 is also ready for committing the transaction. When this type of mixed responses are received by the coordinator side decides to abort the transaction. So, in short, we can conclude that if all the responses that are received from the participating sites are positive, then coordinator side can commit the transaction. But if at least one participating site is saying not ready, the transaction is aborted in that case. So we can say that in this way the two-phase commit protocol works. Two-phase commit protocol faces some failures. Now we need to see how this protocol recovers from the failures. Earlier we discussed about the log files and we said that all the minor details related to transaction are maintained in the log file by the participating sites as well as the coordinator site. The two-phase commit protocol checks these log files and recovers with the help of the logs. The failure can be either at participating site or at the coordinator site. If failure is at participating site, then there are two cases. The first is participating site fails before sending ready message, and the second case is participating site fails after sending ready message. If participating site fails before sending ready message, then coordinator site will not receive the message and transaction will be aborted. So coordinator will assume that the participating site is not ready for committing the transaction. And in second case, participating side fails after sending ready message. Participating side has conveyed that it is ready to commit the transaction. So it will send ready to message to the coordinator side. The coordinator side will receive that message and then the coordinator side will proceed in the normal way. So these are the two cases. Till this point we have seen the failure of participating side. Now what will happen when the participating side will restart after its failure? So the first and important task that participating site will do is it will check the log file. As we know that log file contains all the data related to the transaction. So depending on the content of the log file, following things can be done. In first case, log file may contain either tcommit or abort messages. If the log file contains tcommit message, then it means that the coordinator site has committed the transaction. And if log file contains abort message, it means that the coordinator site has informed the participating site about aborting the transaction. For commit message, participating site will redo the transaction, and for abort message, participating site will undo the transaction. So here participating site will redo the transaction and here participating site will undo the transaction. Each participating site will send acknowledgement of these redo undo operations to the coordinating site. In second case, log file may contain ready message. It means coordinator site has sent the prepare message to the participating site and participating site has written the ready message into its log file. Then participating site has sent back this message to the coordinator site. It told the coordinator site कि I am ready for committing the transaction. So in this case, the participating site contacts to the coordinator site to determine whether to commit or abort the transaction. In third case, log file might be empty. There is no record inside the log file. It means that site got failed before voting. So the participating site will run undo and will abort the transaction. In this case, participating site will run undo and will lead to aborting the transaction. So this is how the thing happens when the participating side recovers from the failure. Till now, we have discussed about the failure and recovery of the participating side. Now, we will discuss about the failure and recovery of the coordinator side. When the coordinator side fails, then all the participating side will communicate with each other to decide the exact status of the transaction. In this case, there will be three scenarios. In first case, if any of the participating side contains tcommit or abort message in their log files. So, if this is the situation, then we can say that the transaction is either committed or the transaction is either aborted as per the content written inside the log file. In second case, if any one of the participating side does not contain t-ready message in its log file. If this is the situation, then the participating side does not have t-ready message in their log file. So it means that the participating side has not voted for the transaction. So without vote, the coordinator could not have decided to commit the transaction. In this case, the preferable thing will be aborting the transaction T. If above both cases are not there, then we will execute the third case. Here, the participating sides will wait till coordinator recovers. And this waiting will be for indefinite time. So the drawback associated with this phase is all the participating site will remain in the blocking stage until the coordinator site again become live. This drawback of blocking the participating site due to the failure of coordinator site leads to the new protocol which is known as three-phase commit protocol. So let's summarize. In case 1, we can say that the transaction will either committed or aborted. In case 2, it is preferable to abort the transaction. And case 3, participating sites will remain in the blocking state. Now consider that the coordinator site recovers from the failure. When the coordinator site recovers from the failure, it will check its log file. So in case 1, log file will contain either tcommit or abort entries. If the log file contains tcommit, then redo message will be sent by the coordinator to the participating site. And if abort message is there inside the log file, then undo message will be sent by the coordinator to the participating site and the transaction will be aborted. In case 2, when the coordinator will recover from the failure, if it found prepare message inside the log file, then the coordinator decides to abort the transaction and conveys it to the participating site. So with this, we come to know that how the recovery is done in the distributed databases. So that's it from this session. I hope that you might have liked this session. Kindly subscribe my channel for more videos. Thank you.